It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Amardeep Singh Bhatia. You've already introduced what his current position is, but I have had the privilege of knowing him for a long time, starting from his days in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, where he was also heading the Special Frauds Office, the SFIO. And he's known to be a person of action, rolls up his sleeves, and gets the job done. And we are very privileged to have him here, sir. Thank you very much for being here. Sir, on this issue of climate change and climate control, the topic is very wide and broad. We are conscious of the fact that your ministry is not the ministry that sets the targets and the ministry that owns the responsibility particularly. But the fact is that your ministry, at the end of the day, is the ministry that prepares our industrial policy, that interacts with investors, interacts with other ministries, interacts with industry. And therefore, all of that is ultimately encompassed, the feedback you get, including India's goals, India's whatever it's pledged, is encompassed in the policies that you frame. So we really believe your insights will be extremely valuable to us. Starting with just the basics. I mean, this is a very enlightened audience who knows more about climate control than me for sure. But insofar as the basic targets that we had set for ourselves, there's the shorter term target for 2030 and then the longer term target for 2070. Most of us won't be here for that target. But as far as 2030 is concerned, we seem to be on track insofar as all the three targets, four targets are concerned in terms of installation of non-fossil based energy, in terms of reduction of emissions from the 2005 levels, reduction of the CO2 emissions. But I think the question that is being asked frequently is that the fact that we have installed capacity doesn't necessarily translate into actual utilized generating capacity. And given that last year, close to over 70% was coal generation, and this year already, so far, as per Niti Aayog's figures, we're at 68%. The question is, where do we look at this particular paradigm being addressed? And what is the thought that you have as being a part of the government on this particular aspect?
Thank you, Mr. Bahl. Thank you for dragging me into this chat. I think I should reserve it for the end to thank you or not. But it's a pleasure to be here for this conversation. So broadly, we all know, and I don't think we need to tell everyone, we have a common but differentiated responsibilities framework, which we have to keep in mind while discussing anything about our commitments and our roadmap towards meeting the goals on account of climate change. We have, our government has been taking a number of steps, not only in the current couple of years, but for the last more than 10 years, a number of steps have been taken. And if you look at that path, the roadmap that we have followed in terms of renewable energy, we have exceeded, as you yourself mentioned, the targets laid down for us. And we are now going to the next step of providing certainty, providing also battery storage solutions also to our industry, so that they are able to meet the sustainability requirements. And if you look at the consciousness within industry also, there's more and more consciousness that sustainability has to be part of our overall objectives in driving the business. And this is also driven by the manner in which the global value chains are getting restructured. And in order to meet that also, now that's the energy part of energy side, but also the supply side. The demand side also, if you see, more and more emphasis on, in the transport sector, for example, greater focus on EV. And you have a number of policies which are already in place to ensure that the EV offtake in the country, the industry really develops. So these clearly indicate what is the direction which the country is taking in terms of driving the industry also towards the common objective of meeting the 2070 net zero targets.
I think, sir, that's absolutely right. And I don't want to belabor the issue, but one of the questions that has come up is that there's no plan that has been laid down that as to when we will sort of reduce our dependence on coal, which I expect is challenging because we have industry which is dependent on it, steel and other industry which is growing, so that balance has to be there. But I think that is one of the points that is being made repeatedly, that we don't have an exit plan which is laid out. And maybe one of the thoughts is that while we have a 2030 plan, maybe we should also consider, because 2070 is a long way off, but maybe 2035, 24, so that people feel that we are assessing our progress every 5 years and actually coming out with figures. So that could be one possible way of addressing it. I'm sure there's no silver bullet which can solve for it, but at least that will give people that confidence that that change is constantly being moved towards. But just switching to the next issue, which is really the investment requirements. I mean, everybody is, you talk about the amount of investment that will be required to make this sector get real. And when I look at this sector, we were just discussing the other day internally, there are, as I see, two parts to this sector. One is the part of the sector which is free to sell to an end customer, which is basically your EVs who are dependent more on OEMs, your product sales, battery storage. They don't require too much intervention of the government. And then there is the whole energy sector where the interface with the government in terms of the state discoms, the transmission is inevitable. And I think while we understand that the commercial and industrial sector growth has become quite high, it's almost 25 to 30%, where they're bypassing the grid in the sense that they're not selling to the discoms and reselling. But are we looking at approaching these two areas, first of all, a little differently? Because one may not need that much government. Well, intervention we will always need in terms of promoting the energy, the sector, but the dependence on the sector, the dependence on government or state is a little less pronounced in those cases.
In the renewable sector?
In the renewal, insofar as the end use, which are like batteries, for example, or EV, that going straight to the OEM. So the government is not really involved in that process. But where you're buying electricity at the state level and reselling it, there the health of the discoms is also a very critical aspect for people to consider for the projects to be bankable. So I'm just wondering that when you look at policy, do we look at the policy for this sector in those slightly sort of different segments?
So you're going to the core power sector policies.
One is power sector, yes, because renewable encompasses more than just one area. Energy is one part of it. The rest of it is more demand and consumer demand based.
Yeah, so you look at first coal. Coal is a resource I don't think all of us know also, something we cannot wish away. We have large resources of coal and we should find ways of using it. And we have been exploring, and I think we will continue to explore, in fact, more vigorously. How do we use it in a better way? So in that direction, coal gasification is something which is also being talked about, and also the government is working very actively to see whether that required technology can come in to harness this in a more climate-friendly manner. As far as the energy consumption side is concerned, I think I can talk more about how do we, there are various areas where you can reduce energy consumption. So there's a number of steps we are looking at. In fact, we are in the process of designing a program called Ahead, where air conditioning, how do we reduce air conditioning and air cooling? How do we use technology, how do we introduce new technologies, so that our energy consumption demand is going to be huge in the air conditioning sector, so that our consumption footprint reduces. So that's something which we are designing. We are working with the World Bank on it. And we're looking at not only introducing new technology, because as all of us know, in this climate change sector, we need new technologies. If we have to bring in greater efficiency of energy usage, if we have to upgrade ourselves to meet those goals, and this is there in all sectors. This is there in renewables also. Renewable, we need technology. This is in air conditioning also. Similarly, if we have to move up the value chain of fire efficiency, we'll need technology. So it's not only adopting the technology we are talking about. We are also talking about how do we transfer the technology to manufacture in India. How do we transfer the technology to innovate further on the technology, so that we are able to localize it, and also not only localize it, but also make in India for the rest of the world also, because there's a huge global south, huge market which is opening up. And as the world develops, at the developing countries also progress, those markets are also something we'll be looking at in addition to the developed countries market. So I think there's a lot of focus on consumption through those programs. We have again number of other initiatives where we are reducing the energy footprint, whether it's logistics, whether in the way your industrial parks are being developed. Sustainability is built into the way we are thinking on developing these parks. So that's something which would also help in ensuring that although our consumption, our energy needs are going to go up on account of our development needs, we also use it in a much more efficient manner.
Which is all obviously welcome, sir. But what I was really referring to, that to the extent that the last mile is controlled by discoms, what is the sort of, that's been an age-old issue. The energy sector is not new here, but I mean, is there some thinking on that? Because that has got potentials of being a bottleneck. I mean, in some ways, if they could become agency model rather than buying and selling, that would be ideal, which is, I believe, happening with the commercial and industrial sector, where they take for the transmission and for their whatever they add to it. But wherever they become the buyer, then they become the risk that the seller has to take.
It's not my sector purely, but like this also is not my sector purely. But you look at the manner in which reforms, that area also required reforms, and we have a number of initiatives where the center work with the state governments to ensure that the desired reforms are put in place. There are various ways of doing it, and in the power sector especially, they have launched some schemes, I think some programs also, which are helping in ensuring that there's a greater efficiency at the last mile. So I think leave it at that.
No, anyway, I'm a great optimist, sir. When I look at it, having been a part of the telecom opening, I recall at that time the same question arose: where's the money going to come from? Where is the investment going to happen? And not only did it happen, but ultimately we got models where what we thought was integrated infrastructure, like the towers, got spun off, created a new revenue stream. And at the end of the day, the telecom operators focused on upgrading their networks and moving up the technology chain, whereas those became an independent model. So I'm always very optimistic about India, and I believe that if the opportunities are here, the investment will come. We've got people like Ashley sitting here, and I'm sure that with their initiative, just raised a big fund, $2 billion fund. I'm sure that we can bank on them to make sure that we get funded for our investments. Just very quickly, sir, switching to the other aspect of state intervention, and also the fact that we have clearly, India has to balance the poverty needs, the economic growth that it has to sustain in order to alleviate poverty with the climate goals, and obviously deal with those regions which are coal dependent and so on and so forth. So you have a lot of interaction. I know personally, even in many areas that we work together with the ministry, a lot of interaction with the states. How does this play in? I mean, obviously, states will have their own sensitivity, and even if the government is the same, ultimately, while it may ease the communication, there'll always be state sensitivities. How do you see the role of the states in all of this, and how do you see those challenges being addressed at the central state level?
So, this partnership, the center-state partnership, is very critical. As all of us know, the policies which are designed in the center have to be finally implemented at the state level only. The machinery for implementation is at the state level. So it's very critical that there is a buy-in of the state governments and they are able to implement it. So there are various tools which are used by the government of India for this. One is, if one looks at the manner in which the national climate action plans have evolved over the last 10 to 12 years. These, a broad framework was given by Government of India to the state governments, and then they designed their own climate action plans. And those climate action plans then were again discussed at the central government level, and what could be funded, where it could be funded from. That was then decided based on the discussions which were held there, depending on where the financing was available from. In addition, this is one model which is followed. There's another model where you push the states toward a little bit of competitiveness. We have this business reform action plan, which we have been implementing for the last almost 10 years, around 7 editions we've done. And very successfully, we pushed states to reform in an increasing number of, we started with around 57 reforms and gradually increased to around 400 reforms, where we pushed the states to introduce single window systems, simplify processes, and so on and so forth. And that has been very successful. If you talk to the state governments today, they say this has been a great contributing factor in pushing reforms. So that's the second part. The third is, of course, pure through transfers, link transfer. That also has been followed in certain cases. The last mile connectivities, the national logistics policy, for example, driving that was linked to certain transfers which were made by the central government to the state. Adoption of the policies, bringing in some changes. So that's another tool which is there. So these tools are available, and any direction which leads to more development in the states is always welcome.
And I assume that, because there is so many other areas of green gas emissions, which at the state level, vehicular traffic, construction, biomass, garbage, all of that is, at the end of the day requires a mindset change. What is the sense you're getting? Are states responsive? I'm not sure that I see that much responsiveness in our own city of Delhi, which is the government is not to blame. I think we are all partly responsible for it, but I think it creates a sense of a little bit of despondency that if we can't solve a problem in our own capital city, are we being able to address that in other cities? Is this malaise going to spread to other cities which currently at least are better off? But I mean, is that also on top of mind in the government, that let's try and not let this get replicated in other states and in other areas?
Air quality is a complicated thing,
right?
So let me not get into, but I would like to recall an experience. When the COVID thing started, we had a lockdown. We had, I was in Delhi also, you also would have been in Delhi. And I don't think we would have seen clearer blue skies than we saw during that lockdown period. So taking off from what you said, that it's a change in the public mindset which has to be there. But yes, along with that, a lot of other things have to come in so that we are able to use public transport more than private transport. After all, what is a major contributing factor towards air pollution is private transport. So the lesser we use it, I think the lesser pollution will be there. But yes, I think the government, I'm not very conversant to speak much on that, but I'm very sure the state governments are
I
doing
agree.
much on
Mindset
that.
change is important. When you talked about COVID, I remember running on Shantipat on the wrong side of the road, straight on a weekend without having to bother about the cars, and it was one of the most beautiful feelings I've ever experienced with the blue sky. But just finally, sir, as far as the big picture is concerned, where do you see a couple of key challenges and a few opportunities, just from an investment standpoint? Where do you see the next round of big opportunities you think for development, technology, product?
You see, first and foremost, let me point out that the government is very clear. It has very clear targets with regard to meeting the climate change goals, common but differentiated responsibilities. It is very aggressively moving forwards towards, it's not waiting for things to happen, it's making things happen. It's actively participating and driving the climate change agenda. But adaptation is different from mitigation. We are more focused. We have our needs also which have to be met. So that's something which has to be kept in mind. And secondly, you have to also, I think, we'll continue. Afternoon, sir. So aggressively moving towards meeting a climate change target, but also at the same time ensuring that we are not impacted on account of any non-tariff barriers, which are where other countries use this as non-tariff barriers. Number two, innovation is something which is very important while technology transfer takes place with our strong startup ecosystem that we have, where a lot of innovation is taking place and a lot of money is also flowing in the climate change sector also. We are hoping and we are very positive that this will also bring around a lot of technology development in the country, which will help in ensuring that we have deeper value chains within the country, deeper production lines within the country with regard to the technology which is required to ensure that we are able to meet our climate change goals.
And I mean, I think our policy for this sector is probably more liberal and has been liberal from the beginning, that even telecom and others which had much more restrictive entry barriers. Here there are no entry barriers.
Yeah.
Everything is under FDI.
Yeah,
I think a few of the products are under PLI as well. Solar modules and batteries are under the PLI as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So yours, sorry.
Yeah, so you have 100% automatic route, and up to 100% automatic route in the renewable sector. You have the PLI scheme, which is there for solar modules as well as the entire value chain there, and very attractive schemes which are available for
and people can expect a consistent policy. I think that is pretty much established in the last few years. That policy of liberalization has never ever seen a reversal. So I'm sure that with people like you and those who follow you in your footsteps, we'll have the same continued confidence in our policy.
The trajectory is very clear. The trajectory is that we have to deregulate. We have to ensure that our industry, our businesses flourish. They find it easier to do business. That's the trajectory, and it's very clear. It's been very clear from 10 years, from the time when Mr. Amitabh Kant started driving it, when our Honorable Prime Minister started driving it. Till now, it is very clear. In fact, it has become deeper and deeper as we go on.
Thank you very much, sir, on that positive note. If there are any questions for Mr. Bhatia, otherwise, as always, he has pretty much a full day and he needs to get back. But if somebody has any questions, I'm sure he'll be able to answer that. Good. If there are no questions, sir, then you can thank me for not, or at least not say not thank me.